famous, number one, desirable. I do what I want, when I want, and how I want it. Leave you with the one in the air, that's how I roll. I got tons of soul, I'm a true collectible. Famous, also famous, number one, desirable. I do what I want, when I want, and how I want it. Leave you with the one in the air, that's how I roll. I got t-shirts, so I don't care about no gold. Better, so much better, flipping incredible. Always on the show, so they know that I still got it. And I never feel sorry, yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. When I hit and come like my fuse and then ba-bum. Later, see you later, I'm about to blow this up. You can sing my song if you want, I know you want it. It's always kind of funny, yeah, cause you know.
Hey guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, the home of my story, and we're into series 3 now. We've had some cracking guests across all 3 series, all sorts of stories from different people from all industries and sports. It's been a whale of a time as we listen to their stories in their own words, and they share memories and anecdotes along the way. And this one will be no different whatsoever. But if, as usual, if you can help us out, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/AcePodcastNation. If you prefer your podcasts in audio form, then you can get them at the Sports Social Podcast Network. Just search, or the links are in the description below as well. Ace Podcast Nation presents my story, and there's 3 series there of actors and filmmakers and boxers and footballers and all sorts. It's always a good time, and I'm delighted to welcome back to the channel for his first appearance on this series for sure. Is Wycombe Wanderers defender and ex-Cardiff City defender, of course, as well, Mr. Joe Jacobson. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Si. Thanks for having me on. Sorry.
Yeah, it's good. I know. I'm looking forward to it, and obviously. We were supposed to do this a couple of weeks ago. I apologise for that. I got the COVID right at the last minute, so we had to delay it. And as I just said to you, it's something I hate rearranging shows because I don't like to mess people about and stuff. And obviously, not only did I rearrange it, but it was literally, I think, like half an hour before we were due to start. So I appreciate you being so understanding about that. But yeah, let's get into you. So obviously with this one, you're going to do a lot of talking. It's all about you and just kind of different things. We'll hopefully get some behind the scenes stories maybe along the way, and just nice relaxed conversation about Joe Jacobson. But obviously the place to start is where did it all begin for Joe Jacobson? And tell us a bit about your kind of upbringing and those early days.
So it's probably the same as most young kids in the country, really. Just love playing football. I had an older brother who played football. He played for Thornhill in Cardiff. And when I was probably 6 or 7, I went to the younger age groups from Thornhill at the time. It was run by Peter Misbah, who's his son Zaki. Well, all the sons, Zaki, Malik, Samir, they've all had good local football careers. Samir was at Cardiff for a little bit, and I think Zaki has been at Blackburn and played a lot in the Welsh leagues and stuff. So they had a team that was really good, and I joined in, and from a kid, you don't know how good you're going to be, but it seems like I was doing all right. I was scoring goals for them, and I'm really enjoying it and loved it. And that Thornhill then changed to Porto's, and in Cardiff we had a great reputation all the way up through the youth teams of winning the leagues most year, winning the cups. I remember playing at where was the trying to think, right, in Canton, I think it was, where the cups were every year. Do you know where they were?
Oh yeah, so where they have like the cup finals and that.
Yeah.
They used to do them at the civil service ground.
Yeah, that's exactly where it was. Yeah. So I remember going there.
I wasn't sure if you were too young then I was going to show my age by saying the civil service ground. And
no, that was it. Yeah, I was trying to think of the road it was on. I can't think of the road.
My geography is shocking, even in Cardiff.
But anyone who played football in Cardiff knew about trying to get to those cup finals and things, and our kind of rivals were Lisvane, and I was from Lisvane as a boy. I grew up in Lisvane, went to school there and stuff, but they were our rivals. They were the other good team in Cardiff, and we every year it seemed like we'd meet them in the final. I remember scoring a couple of goals in different finals and stuff, and at that age as a kid, it was like the best thing ever, wasn't it? It was, there's no better feeling than playing in those games, and I remember the build up to it used to be huge. And there was one time I'll go back, a bit further on, but I was at Cardiff at the time when I was about 13 or 14. We got to the cup final. We had a game for Cardiff the same day as the cup final. I had to make a decision, and we tried to time it where I'd play for Cardiff in the morning. Literally, I ran off the pitch in my Cardiff kit. My mum was waiting there. My dad was at civil service waiting for me on the phone to my mum, telling us the score. The game had gone into extra time. Peter had kept one substitute back just in case I could make it in time. Lucky it went to extra time. I got changed in the car into the other kit. And my dad always remember him saying that I just ran through the bushes. I didn't even bother going to the main road or park, whatever it was. I saw a gap in the bushes. I ran in, ran on. I think it's second half of extra time. I came on, scored the winner. And it was, again, the most amazing feeling playing in those games. So great memories of playing in local football in Cardiff. And I think I was about 9 when someone kind of asked me to go down to Cardiff City training. We used to train at the university campus in Kincoid. There wasn't any age group for me, but I remember, I think it was about under 11s, under 12s, and Kevin Parkins, who was a well-renowned coach in Cardiff at the time. He had his son Michael, and they had an amazing age group of like Nicky Fish, Michael Hayward, Michael Parkins. They had a good crop of young players coming through, and I just went in, trained with them, and kind of stayed in and around the Cardiff kind of setup then for a couple of years until there was more players my age. And I think I joined when I was about 9. I think Joe Ledley joined a few weeks later. And then, it started off with that and just kind of carried on through the systems, as it were. Eventually, I had to give up playing for Portos, which I was a little bit gutted about because we had a great team. I'm still friends with some of the boys now from that team. And it was great growing up and playing in those, those Saturday. And I think now in football, I think kids are taken out of school, kids are put into academies so early that, they've missed out on all those playing time with their mates, and they might get released at 15, 16 and get chucked back into it all, and it's not the same. So I'm glad it happened the way it did with me.
But funny enough, there's my oldest boy and my youngest boy have kind of been in and around the various systems, like with Cardiff, and then they were with Taff Square and stuff. But there was 2 instances. There's a boy, and my youngest boy, he's 13 now, and when they were at under 7s, they had an amazing team in the first couple, like under 7s, under 8s. But it was largely down to they had these 2 boys who were already in the Cardiff system at like under 8s, and the one boy was so good, it was ludicrous. Like the stuff he could do at sort of 8 compared to all the other boys who were just sort of starting to learn, and just like kicking the ball for the first time. It was their first season really. And so he signed properly with Cardiff. He played another season, I think. So then by under 10s, he was told like he wasn't allowed to play for the school, and he wasn't allowed to play for Lisvane anymore. So like, I understand it from one side of it. He was only allowed to play for Cardiff, and I think like the like county and stuff. I do get it. They want to protect their players and stuff like that. But there's another boy, and my oldest boy is 17 now, and there was a boy he used to play with at Lisvane who got the same thing taken out at like I think about under 11s, told he couldn't play for the school and couldn't play for Lisvane anymore. He got dropped then at like 16, didn't get a pro contract. But in Cardiff, after under 16s, it finishes at Parks level. So if you want to keep playing football, you've got to play men's football, which is it's one thing doing a 16, 17-year-old sort of coming into a like a club like Cardiff or whatever and playing in the first team, training with the first team every day. So you get used to it and you're sort of blooded along the way, playing with men as opposed to kids. But like for a 16-year-old boy who hasn't played park football for 6-7 years, to then be told, the only way you can carry on playing now is by playing with proper adults, I think is difficult. And he stopped playing football. And I think that's quite sad because like you said, he missed out on those times are so much fun. Like you mentioned the cup finals, and like I think I played 2 over my childhood, and I can only remember one of them really. I was so nervous coming up to it, and like looking back, I should have just been another game, but it was just because it was a cup final. It was at a different ground. There was there's like a stand on the one side, and it was just
it felt like there was massive crowds there, didn't it?
Yeah, it felt like such a huge deal to like an under 12 or something. And I remember like just very quickly, like when we lost on in extra time, I think we drew and then lost in extra time or whatever. And I remember when the final whistle came, I was crying, but I wasn't crying because I lost. I remember like I was crying because I was frustrated with myself, but I also felt like I should be crying because it was a cup final, and that's what I see footballers do on the TV and stuff. It just is what it is. But like it was as a day, like it was such a big thing. But back to you, mate. So you played for you played like my boys played for Lisvane. So Thornhill is like the enemy at the moment. Like they're their proper enemies. But so yeah, have you got any brothers and sisters? Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got an older brother. No, I've got an older brother who played. He was at Thornhill as well, growing up. Went to college actually and played football in Wales. I can't think where it was. Outside of Cardiff, towards Newport Way, and did like a scholarship type thing with them. Didn't really like. He's good, my brother. He's a lot taller than me. He's a centre back. He was 6'3". He was decent on the ball and stuff like that. But I just don't think he kind of cared enough like I did. Like I'd go in the garden with him, and I'd cry if I didn't beat him in the garden. You know what I mean? And he was a couple of years older than me, so it was always really difficult. Which probably helped me to kind of get used to playing with bigger boys and better players and things 100%. Like that. But going back to, I've also got a little sister as well who's not the sporty one in the family. Let's put it that way. But going back again to playing for Porto, it's like we used to travel around. We used to go on tours to Belgium and to France, and we played like top teams. We used to play. Remember, we went to a tournament in France, and it was like Marseille juniors and things like that playing, and we were competing. We were just a local football team. I don't know whether they thought because of our name, they thought we were like a Portuguese team or something like that. But we were decent. We had players that went on to at Cardiff at the time. We had players that, like I said, with Zaki, who went on to play for Blackburn, did a scholarship there. And we used to travel around England, playing in tournaments, winning tournaments as well. So all those things that being in the academy kind of, you can be at Cardiff, great, but they're teaching you one way. It's quite, it's not like parks football, is it? You don't learn streetwise things that you learn on the parks. And I feel like that I kind of got that. Whereas now you see kids and there'd be like 7, 8, 9-year-olds who just want to play football, but play like, they do on TV, like the pure football. And it's not the same, it's fine if you make it to the Premier League, but for the 99% of them who don't, that's real life that they're kind of missing out on. So I was happy that I managed to do both. There was times where I probably played for my local team without telling Cardiff and my school team and things like that. But I just wanted to play football. I was happy playing, 4 or 5 games a week if I could do. 100%. Just wanted to play football all the time. And thankfully, when I got to 15 and there was a decision about me, becoming a YTS full time at 16, thankfully they offered me a contract, and I was delighted to kind of go into do my apprenticeship, my YTS there, which I was buzzing about.
Did you used to go watch Cardiff when you were younger?
Yeah, we used to go every week. Me, my dad, my brother as well. My brother was a couple of years older, so we'd go with his mates. Me and my dad used to go, so we'd play. Cardiff used to give us a little season ticket booklet thing for the Canton stand, I think it was. But my dad then got a season ticket in the Bob Bank, and I used to kind of think I was all cool and stuff and show my pass and kind of wander around and go and find a seat by him. And yeah, we loved it. We went to some away games. I remember, God, I can't think what year it would have been. It would have been late 90s, early 2000. I remember they had a big game against Brentford away on a Tuesday night, and Cardiff took like 4,000 or 5,000 there. And we've got family in London, and I remember going up a few days earlier. We went to the stadium to pick up tickets, and they were like, you don't need to buy them today, it'd be fine. Like get them on the night, and I remember they took over the place. Cardiff did. They had fans in every little pocket to the stadium, and I remember going to that, and I think Cardiff lost 1-0 on the night, but yeah, there was plenty of games. I remember going to Tottenham away in the cup and things like that. So yeah, I was a huge Cardiff fan. I had, you know, shirts and things like that, and it's weird because then when you become like being a YTS, as soon as I signed and I was in the building and I was walking past, and players like Cams would be there, who just scored the goal. My first year YTS was the first season in the championship after Cams's goal. So I'd see him walking down the corridor and I'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I remember going to my dad every day and being like, oh, I said hello to Graham Kavanagh today, or Peter Thorne said hello to me, and being starstruck by all these boys. So it was an amazing experience for me.
So do you remember the moment that you found out you were getting a YTS? Did they bring you in to tell you like as a group, or did they tell you individually, or?
They brought us in individual. I think it was a night that they kind of arranged to get everyone in with their parents and stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny because a couple of years earlier, when I was about 14, I actually went up to Blackburn. They wanted to take me up there. I was under contract at Cardiff, and a scout came down and wanted to take me up there. So I went up there for a few days. I remember speaking to Cardiff, and I got called in, and Bobby Gould was the manager, and I had to have a meeting with Bobby Gould. I was 14, and Bobby Gould had called me into his office, and I was like, who am I? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on in my career, and he kind of said that, you know, if you go to Blackburn, they're gonna have to pay for you, but I don't think it's right. You need to stay here. There's a part, you know, told me all this stuff, and I ended up staying. That was when a few of the other boys I knew went up there and signed there, and you know, for me, I made the right decision. I managed to have a career in the game when the other boys kind of didn't. But going back to getting told about YTS, I didn't know, but they'd actually told my parents the week earlier, and they hadn't told me. So I was so nervous. I told everyone in school, you know, they all knew me as he's gonna be a footballer, and you don't realize, looking back now, you don't realize that actually there was a lot of pressure on me to kind of be
100%.
offered it, because if I didn't, I would have had to gone back and
face
everyone
silly,
and be
really,
like,
wouldn't you?
yeah, I'd have gone back and, you know, pie on my face going, no, actually, I'm not as good as what I keep telling all you lot, and they didn't want me. But luckily, I can't. It was Terry Moore was there, and I think it was Matthew Crocker at the time, who was kind of head of the youth, and said, look, we want to offer you a 3-year YTS, I think it was at the time.
Amazing.
Again, and you know, you leave school at 16, and I was going into that, and I was getting paid. I think I was getting paid. It was like 80 quid a week or something. But I thought I was the richest man in the world at that point. You know, coming out of school, having some money to play football. It was the dream, really.
You know, when I spoke to Darren Pearce recently, he said those days when he was like a YTS and he was on like 50 quid a week or whatever. He said he felt like, oh no, actually, sorry, I do apologize. It was Lee Jarman. He said he was on like 50 quid a week, but that 50 quid would last him the whole week because like you just said, he felt like the richest guy in the world. Like it was just, obviously he's a bit older than you, so I think things were cheaper back then, weren't they? Black and white. But no, I think like when you're younger, it's your first job, really. Did you have any part-time jobs or anything like? As a teen, it was just pure football.
Yeah, nothing.
I suppose because you were in there from a young age, you never kind of needed to or had the opportunity to do that because you'd have been training and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I never kind of thought about. I think I helped with paper rounds with friends and whoever every now and again, but I was never one to kind of go out. I was just, if I had any free time, it would be go to the park and play football, or ask my dad to take me to the local pitch in Lisvane and practice crossing with him or doing some stupid drills with him. Whereas other kids were like, right, let's go out and earn some money and have a good time. I was like, right, I just want to play football. So that was kind of my motivation at the time.
So I got to know, like as a 14-year-old, you must have been kind of real nervous being called in by Bobby Gould.
Yeah,
you must have been.
Yeah,
like...
do Do you know what? It was weird at the time. I probably didn't think about it too much, but I remember I knew he was the ex-Wales manager, and when they got him, he was a bit of a big name at Cardiff.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, yeah, I just sat there probably in awe. I can't really remember a lot of the conversation. It was just telling me to kind of stay and not go. I don't know if I told him I went. I can't remember if I'd said I'd already been or I was going to go.
They find out, don't they? They find out. Like, it's a small world.
They did, yeah, and they weren't going to be happy about it, but thankfully I did go up and they were going to offer me something at Blackburn, but I think I kind of said, look, I'm going to stay. I want to stay at Cardiff, and it would have been a huge move to move up the country at 14 years old and join a new school and things like that. So I was happy with my decision in the end.
Yeah, and I think, look, it shows as well that even at that young age, they had plans for you. They rated you enough that they wanted you, to meet the first team manager and say, like, he was telling you, no, please don't, stay, or this is what's going to be best for you. Because if they didn't rate you, or they didn't think you were going to make it or be a part of the system, then they would have not made that effort, would they? Bobby Gould's a busy man. He's the first team manager. He's not going to meet every 14-year-old in the, or every 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old who's potentially going to go to a different academy or club. So I think that says a lot. Certainly, it seems to from the outside. YTS, so those 3 years as a YTS. So I'm interested. Were you a YTS when they were still doing like chores and jobs around the stadium?
Yeah.
Or were you kind of... Yeah, you would have been.
No, I was in that. Yeah, I mean, I loved it. Being a YTS, I loved it. Like, it's like a full-time job. It was like part-time football, part-time cleaner. You would just like go in. Everyone had their own jobs of kit, of cleaning balls, of looking after certain players' boots and things like that. And I think my job the first year was cleaning out the home dressing room every day after training. And you'd literally scrub the place clean. We'd have we'd have Colin Pascoe, who was our coach, and he'd come round and he'd be like, that's not done, that's not perfect, and you'd wait around till 5, 6 o'clock every night before you could go home, before you could say, right, you can go. And it was amazing, and it kind of grounded us. It made us realize it's not just about football, it's about working hard and doing all the right things and being professional every day, and making sure that you look after the place and you do things right. And I'm glad I did it all. We always talk now about the young lads not having done that. I kind of had it probably a little bit too easy, and they haven't been, you don't need to go and clean the toilets and things like that, but just having the responsibility of cleaning players' boots. And, if you didn't, the players would come down hard on you, and it was scary. So you made
Whose
sure
boots
that
did you clean?
did.
Did you have like one guy or a couple?
Yeah, the first, over the years, I had Willie Boland, who you
Good
wouldn't want
friend
to
of
mess
mine.
around with his boots and get his boots wrong. Thankfully, I
me and
never
my
did.
missus
I had
together, he did.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's,
Well, do you want to talk about that, or are you
No.
gonna leave that?
I do absolutely not. I've told the story many times on very because of course you have different guests on, and Willie comes up and you gotta say it, but like no, I'm not gonna tell the story again. But yeah, he's a friend of mine. He got us, me and my wife together. We're still together.
Oh, nice.
Long time.
Nice.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, I had Tony Vidmar. I remember doing him.
What a player.
Yeah, very good player. Really nice guy as well. Really nice guy. He tipped well at Christmas. That was the thing as well. You're a young lad, and Christmas time's coming in, and you kind of hear about players giving the young players money and things like that.
Now we're talking. Who is the best tipper in that squad then?
Vidmar was great with me. I think he gave me 200 quid one year, which was like a month's wages back then. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else. Some of the players used to give the younger players boots and things like that, which was great. But you'd kind of like hang around the first team dressing room on the day when people started giving out, and you just like poke your head in and try and be like waving and making sure your boots are brilliant for that day and things. So it was funny. But with me, they were all great. They all tipped me well. I must have done a decent job on them.
So do you know You might not know. Obviously, it sounds like you had quite. Do you know if there was any bad tippers within that squad? Campbell, I reckon, is a tight one. I reckon he's a
No,
bad
I think
tipper.
he was all right. I think Cams is all right. I'm trying to think. I can't remember anyone who came out and said no. I didn't.
Yeah, I
I
can't
didn't get
imagine it
anything
would
from
be
anyone.
because
Yeah, I think once players probably didn't even think about it, but as soon as one kind of gave, then I think the rest, would have been like,
yeah,
oh, is that what we're supposed to do? And whenever I had it for 1 or 2 years, the start of my career, I made sure that I did it and I remembered to do it, and um, just to kind of give them a little something for Christmas and things like that,
yeah,
which
of
was good.
course. The like all the players who a lot of ex-players who I've spoken to, they talk about their YTS years and doing those jobs and cleaning the ground and the toilets and the boots and all these things that you had to do. They talk about them and they'll like, and Andy openly says as well, like they were the best days of his career. Just so much fun. The camaraderie between you and the boys and just doing it. It was like a real good time when you look back on it. And also it builds character, and like that Darren was saying recently, like it teaches you things like you just mentioned, responsibility and just how to do things right and making sure you get it right. Teaches you to become an adult, I guess, because obviously you're still really kids at that point, aren't you? So, but for you, were they like as enjoyable as that when you look back?
Like every day we used to, when we'd wait for Colin Pascoe to kind of give us the all clear to go home, we'd sit in there, we'd play games, we'd find out stories about each other, we'd all socialize together, we'd go out together, we'd go into town after training, we'd get the bus together, the train together. So we spent every minute with each other. It was great. And they were the first times I ever went on a night out, was with some of the boys. And excuse me, I remember going, it was on a Tuesday night, and I remember thinking, right, the boys had invited, the older boys and the YTs had invited me out, and went round to Michael Hayward's house. He was a YT at the time, a couple of years older, and he was like, right, just come to me, we'll have a few drinks, and then we'll go out. And I was like, I'd never been out before, didn't know what to expect. So it's a Tuesday night, I dressed up like suit trousers on, a shirt on, a jumper and a jacket. I turned up and the boys was like, oh, where are you going? But yeah, just little things like that. Just they set you up for life. Things that you've got to do when you're older, and it was great fun.
It's an interesting one actually, because I think sometimes like everyone knows the sacrifices young footballers make in terms of they don't go out with their friends as much and stuff like that. But you do obviously socialize within your teammates and things like that at that age. But also maybe because you're so dedicated to going towards being a footballer, you perhaps, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but like I feel like because you've got to have so much dedication to become a professional footballer, when you're say 15, 16, maybe a lot of teenagers, that's when they'll maybe have a couple of beers on the sly with their friends and stuff like that for the first time. I would assume that maybe you didn't do that till a bit later in life because you were training, 5 times a week or whatever. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just wondered if that's the case, but also if you kind of remember the first time you had a drink and went out properly, and what that was like, and if it's a different experience to someone who's not in the football world, really. It's a weird one, I know. I just
I was the same. I was always wary about that I was in football, so I didn't want to take it too far. But I think it's part of growing up. Like in school, everyone would go out on a Friday and Saturday night and go to the park and have a few beers and see what they could kind of sneak out from their parents' house. And I was no different. I did it. I was one of them. I wasn't someone who didn't go out or didn't drink or anything like that. I was there. I wouldn't do it as much because I had football. If I ever had football the next day, I would never go out. But there were times where I did, and it was part of growing up with the rest of everyone in school. And I never kind of stopped, socializing and stuff because I was playing football. Even when I was a YTS, I'd be careful. I would never go out the day before training. I still, to this day, have never had a night out the day before training or anything like that. So
you've never trained as a professional, like hungover or nothing like?
No, never.
That's interesting because you speak to a lot of ex-players, and obviously you're still playing, and you're still playing very well as well. Like, you speak to a lot of ex-players, and they'll say, there were some days, and obviously it was a different time. You're talking maybe 10 years before you were a YTS,
Yeah.
and I think football.
No, I've played with players who've definitely done it.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I don't know
which
how
is
they
fine,
could do it, to
and
be
you
honest.
see, yeah, and
Because I
I've
couldn't.
seen players at Cardiff when I was there, playing in the reserve team. There was first team players playing, for whatever reason in the reserve team, and they play after going on a night out, and you think how, but they turn up and be the best players there.
Yeah.
But it's not something that is kind of sustainable, really, for
No,
a long
it's
period
not.
of time.
Mate, I can barely get off the sofa if I've got a hangover, let alone play football. And I can't imagine. And maybe I think as you get older, things like your hangovers get worse. I always think that. But even like when I was in my early 20s, I think back to some of the states I'd be in after a night out. And I remember there was one time I played for the pub team on a Sunday morning, and I'd literally hadn't been to sleep, or like I'd had like an hour on my mate's sofa or something. We'd just been to this party, and we'd met some girls or whatever, and we just had a few drinks and got back to someone's house. And I played football. We played against Somali Dragons on a Sunday. It was the first time we'd just kind of thrown a pub team together, and there was people in there who played that game and never played football ever again, because they weren't athletes. They just were making up the numbers. And about 10 minutes in, I was being sick on the side, and I was embarrassed. Everyone's laughing, and it's like a big joke. We lost about 20-0, but like, I was embarrassed, like, because of it, and I didn't like, I just didn't stop playing after that. That was the end in my football career. But like, yeah. So I don't know how anyone at a professional level is able to sort of train.
I know you hear stories of Tony Adams, Paul Merson, players like that who did it regularly, and I just think how I'm like you. If I have a few drinks, I need a few days to recover, and
exactly that.
Probably the longer my career's gone on, the less and less I've drunk actually, and realised that
same. I didn't drink.
Well, first of all, you get a bit older, you don't go out as much and things like that, but I just. Yeah, I'd feel a lot more guilty about going out. I feel like I'm, I'd never go out close to a game, but even if it's on the Saturday and the Saturday, you'd feel that, your body then feels horrible then for a few days afterwards, and you'd want to go training and get it all out your system and things like that. So I'd rather just not drink and then not have to do the extra training, really.
Yeah, just avoid the hangovers, and I think it's a good shout. So when you were YTS, so the first year YTS, what sort of what age group would you be playing for then? Like under 17s, or would you play in like youth team football? Because they didn't have under 23s then, did they?
No, it was under 17s and under 19s, I think. And at the time, we weren't an academy, so it was just playing against your Swindons, Bristol Rovers, Plymouth, teams like that. And we were decent. We do well. I think we won like the Youth Alliance League and maybe the Cup for England as well. I think I remember going up to Tranmere, I think it was, and we had a team with like Cameron Jerome and Joe Ledley, and I remember going up there and beating them 6-1. I think they were like the reigning champions, and we battered them. So we had a really good team, and it wasn't until my second year where we turned to an academy. And then we started playing Arsenal and Everton and Chelsea and teams like that, which was an eye opener. But I thought we did well. We had a good team, and from the players that I came through with, we had quite a few that within my age and 1 or 2 years up and below that we had a lot that kind of went on to play and have a good career in the game.
Who was the best player that you ever played with or against? In that sort of YTS years or the academy setup, who didn't go on to make and have a career in football?
We had a player who he was a year younger than me, Greg Coombs. I don't know if anyone's ever mentioned him, but he was always probably our best player growing up, even at my age. Him and Joe Ledley were standout players, and Greg had a YTS. I know there was other teams. There was like Newcastle wanted him at the time, and other clubs. for some reason it didn't quite work out with him. I'm still friends with Greg now. I've been speaking to
Yeah.
him this week. I'm going to meet up with him in a couple of weeks when he's down my way. So, still a good friend of mine. And yeah, probably him who's the one who didn't really kind of kick on. And, he had stuff going on at home. His mum passed away when he was quite young and things. And I think a lot of stuff like that kind of affected him. So, yeah, that you see it all the time. Every year there would be players who you think they're good and either quit because they didn't like it or didn't want the pressure and things like that, or they just, when you're younger, I think kids just peak at different ages. I think, the best players at 12, 13, 14 aren't the best players at 15, 16. They've just maybe matured a little bit quicker. And I was never one to be the best player ever. I kind of was a lot more consistent really growing up through those age groups, and kind of never really peaked or was down the bottom ones, but just consistent and kind of stayed in it. Whereas some, would have a good year or two and then drop off a little bit, and I think that's probably why they never really, kicked on as such, I'd say.
So I was just, excuse me, sorry. I was thinking then you must have been a YTS when Leon Jean came into the system, or would you be just too young?
Yeah, he's older than me. He's a few years older.
He came in just after the playoffs, didn't he? So I was thinking you must have been like 14, 15 at that point.
I think when I joined, I think I did see him play. Yeah, I remember watching him, and he had this massive reputation, didn't he, of being this skillful, incredible player. Probably the new early that came along. The players around my age were like Stuart Fleetwood. He was a year older than me.
Yeah.
He obviously played a few in the first team and had a decent enough career. Nicky Fish was always a brilliant player. Unfortunately, with a car accident that happened to a few of those boys, driving back from running the reserve games, kind of stopped his career. And yeah, I think the year or two older than that was James Collins. He was the last one kind of that group to kind of come through. He wasn't a whitey when I was there. He was like first year pro at that time. But we had the year or two younger than me was Darcy Blake and Chris Gunter, and then Aaron Ramsey the year younger than that as well. So there was quite a few that kind of did make it from that period of time. And it was different back then. You'd only get a YTS if you were like good enough. At my age, there was only 5 of us who got contracts, whereas now there's like 12, 15 players at every age group who get offered the scholarship term. So I feel like it was a little bit harder to get those contracts back then. But
100%, because like now they have a squad, I think, for each age group, don't they? Whereas it sounds like they picked literally the best handful of players at your age, and that was it. So were you ever
saying to what?
Go on.
Sorry. No, I just remember saying. I just remember them saying that we're gonna, when there's no point offering, we think you can make it in the first team. That's why we're offering you those scholarship terms rather than just to make up the numbers. So I think that was their thinking back then.
Yeah, and that makes sense, doesn't it? At the end of the day, like that's the kind of the point of having an academy, isn't it? Is to to get these, like, get first team players basically, and that's the point.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point where you felt like you were in danger of being dropped, sort of in that YTS initial couple of years?
Not really. I was the first year. I was doing well. I was playing in the under 17s, I think it was at the time, under 19s, and I kind of cemented my place in the team. There was no one really the year above me who was a left back at the time, so I was kind of playing a lot. I was playing in the FA Youth Cup, which was another big occasion for us. And then the second year I was playing the academy, and I had a bit of a bad injury. I had a strange back injury that took a while to kind of diagnose and kind of set me back a bit, and I couldn't get fit. I was having problems with it, and I was kind of not worried about it, but looking back now, I should have been worried. It was, I ended up having a double fracture in my spine that didn't get diagnosed till years later. And I was trying to play through it, and the time they didn't send me for a scan or anything like that, and they couldn't kind of get to the bottom of why it was happening. So it took a few months for it to kind of settle down. Eventually it did. And in my third year, I remember playing in the reserve team more than the under 18s as it was back then. And just doing really well. I got called up for the under 21s national team. I'm playing in the reserves where, I was playing with good players every week, and we had a good team. We were beating good teams. We were doing friendlies against Chelsea and teams like that, and coming away with good results. So there was no point where I didn't think I was in the mix to go forward. There was other players there you could tell that were kind of starting to be pushed aside a little bit, but I wasn't one. I was kind of always laying in, and a couple of times would go and train with the first team and things like that. But again, the end of my third year YTS, where we kind of all the boys at one point got taken into the first team dressing room in Indian Park. There was, I think, 12 of us out of contract from my age group and the year older and the year older than that, who had all been, when whatever it was, their contracts had all expired, and I was the only one out of the 12 players who got offered anything, which, I was, at the time, I was surprised that many more weren't. I mean, I thought I would, just because I was in and around the first team squad sometimes and doing well. And it was horrible having to go into Dave Jones' office, him offering me a contract, walking out and seeing all my friends sitting there who had not been offered anything. I felt guilty. I felt like I shouldn't have been able to kind of be happy about it and things like that. So it was a really mixed feelings having that day. I remember it clearly.
Yeah, I can imagine it's difficult, isn't it? Because you want all your friends to to get offered them as well, and the guilt is. I remember that myself. I've seen it with my boys as well. It's not nice. So obviously you were captain of the reserve team for a while.
Yeah.
Do you what was that a big deal for you as a as a teenager, or was it just all part of the process, I guess, of trying to get to the first team?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a big deal, but it's always, I think you kind of feel like you're wanted there a little bit more, and you've got a little bit more longevity if they're asking you to be the captain. I don't think there was ever a point where Paul Wilkinson at the time, who was the reserve team manager, ever went, Joe, you're going to be the captain now. It was just like, you're captain today, it wasn't, it just happened to be me. And yeah, it was like, I loved it. Obviously, I was captain whatever team it was in the youth team. It's funny, in like 12, 13, 14-year-old at Cardiff, I'd go and ask to be captain. I'd be like, can I be captain today, to the coaches? And some of the time they say yes, some of the time they say no. But yeah, it's always nice to be asked to do it, and it's proud moment always. Captain in any team, whatever it is, it's to be at front, to kind of have the rest of the players not look up to you, but kind of ask you to lead by example without actually saying it. It puts a little bit more pressure, but I quite liked it. I quite liked, and I still do whenever I do it. I like kind of leading the team out and taking responsibility that way. So again, it was just another thing that I thought is going to help me further down the line. I always used to think like, what's going to propel me and have a career, and these little things all kind of push towards, making it as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I wanted to ask you. You had you made one appearance for the first team, which I've always felt was
two appearances.
Two. I do apologize, but like I've always felt that it was from the outside. It was weird because in your debut, your full debut, you were really good. You were outstanding. You caught the eye, and Cardiff fans were excited by it. Because if I remember correctly, it was towards the end of the season, wasn't it? And
it's against Norwich. I think second last game of the season. Yeah,
I remember. But like,
Early scored, didn't he? I think for Norwich and the 1-0. Yeah.
And he celebrated.
No,
it was a good day actually. But Cardiff fans were excited by your debut, because they love academy players coming through.
Yeah.
Local boys and stuff, and then it kind of didn't pan out. But before we get to that, I wanted to know like the process of like when they told you, were you excited and like what was that? Like when did you find out you were going to be playing?
Yeah, so the week before, we played Crewe away, and that was Darcy Blake's debut. And myself, Darcy, Jamal Easter, and Curtis McDonald all travelled with the first team. Darcy was the only one on the bench, but for us, it was like amazing to travel and be involved in it and things like that. And I remember seeing Dave Jones in the week, and he said, you know, did you want to play against Crewe? And I was like, yeah, of course I did. And he was like, why didn't you say anything? I was like, well, I didn't know if that was my place to say anything. Then later on the week, I think I trained with them that week, and the next weekend we were playing Norwich at home, and he was like, right, I think he said, I trained with him on the Friday, and he kind of said, right, everyone, tomorrow, 1 o'clock or whatever it was in the dressing room. And I was like, am I included in that? I didn't know. And I remember going to speak to, I can't remember who it was, one of the players, and said, like, is that me? Am I involved or not? And he said, well, I can't remember, but they were like, yeah, I think that'd be you. And then I spoke to Paul Wilkinson, and he said, yeah, you're involved. Like, turn up, wear your suit, and come to the game. So I turned up in my tracksuit, my Cardiff tracksuit. They all turned up in their suits. They're like, what are you doing? Why? I was like, well, I didn't know what I was doing. So I turned up in my tracksuit. Anyway, they said, right, you're on the bench. Like, they named the squad. Me and Darcy were both on the bench. And I was like, oh my God, this is like my dream. It was amazing. So had my parents there, and where they used to sit just behind the dugout where the family sat. And it was amazing. And I wasn't expecting to come on. And then I think I probably warmed up for half the game, I think, trying to just be ready. And I think with about 10 minutes to go, he called me down, said, look, you're coming on for Barks at the time, Chris Barker. And it was still to this day the proudest moment I've had in my career, being a Cardiff fan and working so hard throughout all the youth systems to kind of, play for the first team and to finally do it. And funny enough, in work today at the training ground, we were having a conversation, and because we've, Uche Ikpeazu, who's at Cardiff now and scoring a couple of goals, and we were talking about the celebration and doing the Ayatollah when he ran off, and Gareth Ainsworth obviously, played for the club.
Of course, legend.
The other boys were talking about it and the story behind it, and I said, growing up, that was like my dream was to have the fans sing, for Jacobson, do the Ayatollah. And there's a clip of when I came on the pitch. I always remember seeing it. I think we had a free kick on the edge of the box, and Jason Kumas was going to take it. And you can see me and the fans. You can kind of hear, and you see me doing the Ayatollah. And I was like, that one moment in time. Then was like, yes, that's what I've been, striving for years and years and years. And for that 10 minutes, it was amazing. I think I cramped up. I had so much adrenaline running through me. I was on the pitch for about 10 minutes. I was cramping up. I was, so excited running around. I think I fouled someone. I probably should have got a yellow card. And it was amazing. I remember straight after the game, rather than be a first team player, I got the mop out and I started doing my job. So I was like, right, I'm on first team dressing room. I'll start clearing all the stuff away, the kit away. And just, got back into being that mode. And
of course.
I think someone was trying to stop me when the first team player was like, no, you're not doing that now. But I didn't want to leave. I was like, no, these are my mates. I'm going to help them out and carry on doing it. And it was, a special day. And I think it was the Player of the Year awards that night, and they asked me to go. So I remember going home and thinking, right, I need to put a suit on now. I can't just sit there in my tracksuit. And it used to be down at the Coal Exchange, I think, down the bay. I think that's where they used to do it. And it's great. I had a great night. I was, because people knew me from that day of coming on the pitch and stuff. So it was, pretty special. And like you said, not that I started thinking I should be involved, but I remember coming back for pre-season that summer and thinking, right, I want to be involved. I was training with the first team pre-season. Then all of a sudden they went on a tour to America and Canada, and I wasn't asked to go on the tour. None of them. I think Jamal Easter was the only one who kind of was invited to go, and I was a bit like, well, I was expecting to kind of go and be involved, and it wasn't to be. And when they came back, I played in the Carabao Cup or Carling Cup, whatever it was at the time, against Barnet, which we lost. But again, I thought I played well. I thought I was, you know, put myself in good stead to be involved. And I remember at the time they're flying high in the Championship. They'd signed players like Roger Johnson and who else? I can't remember. Kevin McNaughton and Michael Chopra, I think, came in that summer. Those players. So, you know, not that I was expecting to start, but expecting to kind of be involved a little bit more, and it just wasn't kind of meant to be. And that was the season then where I was like, right, I need to go on loan and play some games, which I did. Had a good little spell away at Accrington, which kind of opened my eyes up to what football could be like on the other side.
100%.
It wasn't all rosy and things like that. And yeah, it's just one of those things where, you know, it doesn't always kind of work out planned the way it's supposed, like you think that it should do. And you know, for every kind of Joe Ledley who breaks into the first team, stays in it for years and years, there's players like me who play a game or two and then have to move on, and there's players who don't play at all. So, you know, you just have to kind of find where you're at.
Was that difficult for you, like in terms of being a Cardiff boy, and you said it was a dream to play for Cardiff, made your debut, you got a taste of it, and then, you know, they, for whatever reason, it didn't quite work out, and you did a couple of loans. Was it hard to come to terms with at the time that you might have to go elsewhere with your career, or was it just kind of focused on the career, right? If they don't kind of want me, then I'm going to need to find elsewhere to, you know, progress.
Yeah, I think when I did those two loans, and my second loan that season was at Bristol Rovers, and we ended up getting promoted through the playoffs. So, excuse me, I had you know, a really successful loan period there, and I went back to Cardiff that summer, and I was a little bit in limbo. Bristol wanted to sign me permanently and take me, and I remember having conversations with Paul Wilkinson, who spoke to Dave Jones, who kind of said, "Let it's up to him if he wants." I still had, you know, a year or two left on my contract, so I didn't have to go anywhere. But I think because Bristol was in League One now, they wanted me. They offered me a good contract. I was a bit like, right, you know, if I'm not going to play at Cardiff, then I need to. I love playing games, so I was like, right, I've had a taste of it now. I want to kind of continue that, and
of course, yeah.
And that's the decision I made, and it came to an agreement, and I left for Bristol Rovers. But I think that's one of the only, not regrets, but one of the only kind of what ifs I look back on my career and think, should I have gone, or should I kind of stayed for that pre-season, tried to fight my way in? If it wasn't to be, then I could go on loan, you know, for maybe half a season, come back and try and fight again. But you know, in hindsight, would I have had the career I've had going forward? Yeah. Exactly. So, yeah, that's where
I wanted to very quickly, just as we finish up on Cardiff, I just wanted to ask about Dave Jones, because obviously Andy famously sort of fell out with him and publicly fell out with him. And he's talked about that before, but also all the different players that I've had, Jay Bothroyd, Darren Pearce, they all quite spoke really highly of him, said that he did a lot for their career, although Darren Pearce did fall out with him towards the end. I just wondered what your experience was like with him, because, so, you know, the people have been mixed, I think is fair to say. He's quite prickly, apparently.
Yeah, and I understand that, because he was kind of just straight to the point. You know, I think with the first team players who were in and around him, he's probably a little bit different to the younger boys. But honestly, up until I made my debut, I didn't really have much to do with him. The reserves kind of trained separately from the first team, and very few times would I go over and train with him. I remember when they offered me a pro contract, my agent at the time, you know, went in and kind of said, look, we just want to negotiate a little bit of, and Dave Jones turned around and said, well, look, there's a contract. If he doesn't want to sign it, he doesn't have to sign it, type thing. So I think that was kind of his kind of way, was like, look, you know, you don't deserve. And looking back, I feel a little bit cringed out that I actually tried to negotiate. I should have just been like, yes, great, like I'll take it. I'll be happy with it. But you know, at the time, we also got told, you know, you need to start getting an agent now. There was you know, I started doing well. I was in the, you know, made my debut in the Championship at 19. So, you know, there's also started to be a bit of hype about it and things like that. So, yeah, it was, like I've probably come across him more since I left Cardiff when he's
Oh,
managed
okay.
other teams, and he's always been really good. Whenever I've seen him, I remember we played Hartlepool away a few years ago, and he was the manager, and I remember having a long chat with him after the game, and he was great. He's been at Wycombe at games, watching things like that, and I spoke to him, and he's been great, and he's been really complimentary of me and my career, and I remember him saying at one point that he probably wished I had have stayed at Cardiff. But like I said, it's all hindsight,
Hindsight,
and
isn't it?
it's easier to
Yeah.
say that now. But at the time they had Chris Barker, they had Jermaine Darlington, who could both play at full back, and so they
Kev
didn't.
McNaughton.
It
Yeah,
wasn't like
there was.
Kev then kind as well. So it wasn't like they needed a young kid coming through who was they were desperate to kind of
Yeah, and I
in need
suppose
of a left back to play.
at that age as well, not only were you looking to break through into the first team, like you didn't want to be just training with the first team, you wanted to be playing week in,
Yeah.
week out. And I think in some ways, I wish when I look around at some young players at the moment who are at that sort of 19, 20 age, too many of them, to me, seem as if they're happy to sit on the bench. And I just think, go on loan and show what you can do, show that you deserve a first team place. If you're not going to get it, don't just be happy to, take your paycheck or whatever and sit there and play 5 minutes here and there or not at all. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just my opinion, and obviously everyone's different, but it's
Yeah.
it's one of them. So obviously you signed with Bristol Rovers. You had a good stint there, like 60 odd games. One goal, not prolific.
Yeah. a great goal, great header.
A header was it? I was expecting a free kick. So you averaged. I was just looking at your stats on Wikipedia there. So you had one goal for Accrington in your sort of 6-game loan spell. You had one goal at Bristol, none at Oldham, one at Accrington on loan, then one at Accrington once you signed. So you sort of like one was your number for a while. But then you started banging them in. You scored 7 for Shrewsbury, 33 for Wycombe.
Prolific.
So obviously we can't go through like every club that you were at, but obviously, Bristol Rovers. It seems like you had like I say, good stint there, and you spoke quite highly of your time there. And you did quite well there. They got promoted, didn't they? Like you mentioned, was that that your first taste of kind of not success, but like winning something? I guess the best way.
It was. The problem was because I was on loan. I ended up signing I think the 93-day loan was the most you could do back then. I signed in March, which took me to the middle of May, and it just so happened that the playoff final finished 25th of May.
Later.
Yeah, so I played in the 2 semi-finals. Couldn't play in the final. There's no way of extending it, so I missed out on that and on the game at Wembley and the playoff final and things like that. So that was a shame. I was there with the team. They took me along and that was great, but I just didn't feel kind of part of it a little bit. So only then when I signed, and it was like I said, I moved to Bristol. I thought, right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go there. I bought a place there. I was happy. First year I played, 40, 50 games, I think it was. I was doing well with the under-21s at Wales. And at the end of that season, I got, called up to the first team squad of Wales, went away for a couple of games. Unfortunately, didn't get on the pitch, but amazing experience to be involved in those couple of games. And then I think what kind of killed me a little bit is in pre-season, we went away with Bristol. And in our last kind of pre-season game, I went in for a tackle and someone kind of went over the top and I did my MCL in my knee and kind of set me back for quite a few months. And I couldn't quite get my season on track that second year I was there. Didn't really play as many games, and at the end of the season they kind of let me go. And a little bit surprisingly for me, I thought I'd done enough the first year and showed when I was fit that I was capable of playing. But at the time they were just were kind of like, you've had too many little niggly injuries and stuff, it's time to kind of move on. And that's one of the first times where I was a bit like annoyed with football, I think, where it hadn't gone so kind of smoothly throughout. And it was hard to take, but the time I thought, right, let's just go and find a new club. I was happy to move anywhere. I was happy to kind of travel to a different part of the country, and luckily Oldham came in and kind of offered me a deal to go up there, which was an experience in itself.
Yeah, I always wondered if teams like where you've got a player who maybe picks up a couple of injuries or gets niggly injuries, if they'll say, outright when it comes to letting you go, if they'll say like, look, you've picked up too many injuries, or if they kind of try and sugarcoat it a little bit and say we're going to go in a different direction. But it must have been frustrating because, like you said, the first season at Bristol, you had shown, what you could do. So it wasn't as if you'd struggled and then got injured. You'd had a good stint in that first season. The Wales thing you mentioned, I think we touched on it a little bit in the show you did with Andy and me. I find it unbelievable that you haven't had a full Wales cap, because I still think that you'd be a good member of the team now. So I think I do find it a bit frustrating. It's just as a Cardiff boy myself. But is that something which kind of bugs you now as you're sort of into the second half of your career, should we say?
An extra time in the second half of the career.
But you know what I mean. Like,
of course, it's something I look back on and think I wish I'd got one. Do you know what I mean? Just one cap. And I think, like I said, when I was really close when I was 21, I think, and went away for a couple of games. And I thought after going away there, that was it. I was just going to carry on being involved. And I think for whatever reason, then new players come along, young players come along, and I think it's been quite fashionable the last 5 or 10 years to kind of be a young player at a big club and get game time rather than players who are out there playing first team football every week. And I don't begrudge anyone to play. I've had good players play in front of me. Neil Taylor, Ben Davies have had fantastic careers. Played at better levels than I've ever had, so I can never complain. When I see players like that doing well, but there's still parts of me where I wish I kind of got caps at some point.
Yeah, and like I agree with you, because look, the players you mentioned there, of course, I get that, but they have also been periods where they've been injured or suspended. And we've brought in players who maybe have played, they're at Premier League clubs, but they're not playing. And then I look at you, who's been at Wycombe since 2014 in, League One or the Championship, playing week in, week out, but not just playing week in, week out, scoring goals, defending well, being, for me, that's every time I've watched Wycombe, you've been one of the standout players. So, and that's not, I'm not just saying that because you're here. I've said that to other people. So I do find that a little bit frustrating because, and you know what's annoying, why I find it frustrating very quickly is because years ago, when I was younger, Wales used to pick players from the Welsh League sometimes. They would pick players from the lower divisions because we didn't have those Premier League players. And then kind of as time's gone on, we have been able to pick from the sort of higher leagues. But there's also players in League One and the Championship who I think if they're playing week in, week out and they're showing that they're good enough, there's no reason why you can't pick them. And there has been a few who play at that level and are in the squad. So yeah, it's just my little rant on why Joe Jacobson should have a few Wales caps. But
no, I need you to be my agent saying stuff like this. This is nice to hear.
Yeah, that's it. No, there you go. But so what was it like living in Oldham, mate? That's a bit of a difference where you'd been previously.
I didn't live in Oldham. I lived in Manchester. Do you know what? On the pitch, I had a bit of a terrible time up there. It was difficult. I signed there with Dave Penny, ex-Cardiff, was the manager, and something just didn't kind of click from the start. I think there was a few pre-season games where it kind of got on at me a little bit for things, and I wasn't quite sure about it and about him, and it just coincided with I got a bit of an injury in pre-season, and it took a while for me to kind of get right. They weren't kind of, him and the assistant manager weren't kind of sympathetic with the injury. It was more like what have you done since you've been here? Just been injured. You're not helping us. And I was a bit like, well, I'm injured. I'm like, what can I do?
Sounds
I
like
was
a
going for
very
scans.
old school mentality, mate. Don't it?
Yeah, it was. I think because the team was doing poorly on the pitch. I think they wanted people to blame, and it was tough. It was really tough. I was in a bad, like physically, I was in a bad place. I was struggling to get out of bed, to get in my car, to put clothes on. I had a problem with my groins, and they couldn't quite diagnose it. They were sending me down to Leicester every week to get injections, and I'd be going to try a new type of thing. I was trying to play through it. I was in so much pain, and um, it was tough. And my wife now, who was my girlfriend at the time, used to come and stay with me, and find it weird that I was 22 years old and I couldn't, I'd find it hard to stand up or get in the car and things like that. So it was tough, and I managed to get fit and play a few games during the middle of the season. It just got to a point where I was, in so much pain that I couldn't physically do it. I ended up having 2 operations that summer to kind of fix it. And
What was it? What was the what was
so I had
causing it?
an inflamed pubis bone. So it was just, in the end they had to do something to my ligament and my tendon in both sides of my groins, and it was it was tough. The surgery and stuff and the rehab from that wasn't long at all. It was weeks, but it took me a while to kind of settle in. I didn't probably get the trust of the manager. He then Dave Penny got the sack at the end of the season, and Paul Dickoff took over, which I really liked Paul. I got on with him. It was his first proper job in management, and after a week of the second season, I was recovering from the operations that I had in summer, and Paul Dickoff brought 5 or 6 of us in, all similar, all had a few niggly injuries, and just said, look, you 6, you've got to leave. You can train here, you can be involved, but we need to get you off the wage bill. Club's struggling. If you can find your clubs, then great. But up until then, you'll be involved. So I thought, for me, like, right, that's fine. If you don't want me here, I'll leave. I'll be happy to leave. But I need to get fit. I need to have pre-season. I then, the first kind of week of the season, the week leading up to the first game, it's kind of like U6, right? You're not training with the first team anymore. You're training with the youth team. So again, I was like, right, I just need to keep being fit. So I just accepted it. Obviously wasn't happy, but just thought, right, get fit, try and go on loan, whatever it was. We started playing reserve team games just to get back into it. And I actually started doing really well and managed to force my way back into the fold for the first team. And I remember playing a game, again, doing well. And I'd go to the manager and be like, look, I should be playing here. I'm not being big-headed, but I'm better than what you've got. Like, I should be playing. I've proved it in training, in reserve games. And he's like, I know, but I'm not, I've been told I can't play you, basically. So I had a relationship with the owner. I'd call the owner and I'd be like, what's going on? Why? And he was like, no, it's nothing to do with me. It's the chief exec and the manager. They're having discussions. So I didn't know who to kind of trust with it all. But in the end, I got offered to go on loan to Accrington, which I went. I had the manager John Coleman and Jamie Bell when I was in my first year pro at Cardiff, and had a loan spell there, and they asked me to go back, and I ended up going there for the rest of the season. And yeah, again, we managed to go from 18th, 19th to finishing in the playoffs, which was amazing. Unfortunately, I got sent off in the second leg of the semi-final when we lost anyway overall. But funnily, I was supposed to go on one of my best mates' stag do's. It was starting on that day, and I was like, well, I can't. I'm in the playoffs, and they were all watching the game in the airport before they fly out, and I get sent off, and they're all sending me messages and things like that. So it was a bit of a funny kind of time looking back, and I was always thankful for John Coleman and Jimmy Bell for kind of giving me that opportunity to kind of kickstart my career, because if they didn't, then I don't know whether I would have kind of carried on in football, because the other boys who kind of left at the same time as me never really had careers again in the game. So I was fortunate that they gave me that opportunity, and it kind of allowed me then to kickstart, and that's when Shrewsbury came along that summer, and from being at Accrington, no disrespect, but Shrewsbury was just a bigger club and bigger ambitions, and I was happy to go and sign there, and ended up moving again down to Shrewsbury, which was a lovely part of the world.
Did you find out why they wouldn't play you?
No. I think it was just they wanted to take, I wasn't saying I was a top earner or anything like that. I think they just wanted to trim down the squad. They had another left back who was a younger one, probably on less money. So they thought, right, let's just consolidate, get Joe off the wage bill. And I think the longer I was there playing and being involved, that obviously I wouldn't leave. So I think in the end, they were just kind of
trying to.
And look, they weren't great.
Issue.
Yeah, they weren't great with how they treated me. To do with it. I actually went on loan to start with, and then in the end of the January transfer window, they kind of called me as I was going to sign to Accrington on loan for the rest of the season. They kind of called me and my agent and said, look, Joe's signing there permanently. We're going to, pay up his contract or settle with him, and he's going to go and sign for Accrington permanently to the end of the season. And I was kind of a bit like, well, it all seems a bit fine. I wasn't quite comfortable with it. So my agent went back to the chief exec at the time at Oldham, and his words were, well, tell him if he doesn't want to sign it, he can come back here and rot in the reserves. And I was like, at the time, if that happened to me now, I would go about things different. At the time, I was just like, right, get me out of here. I just want to leave. I have nothing to do with it anymore.
It's toxic, isn't it?
Whereas now, I think I would have tried to play them at their own game a little bit, and be like, right, you're gonna have to pay me now if you want me to leave. So it was a tough time at Oldham, and one that I don't look back on with great memories on the pitch. Off the pitch, I lived in Manchester in the town centre with one of my best mates now, and we had a great time. It was incredible city living there, and I loved it. But on the pitch, kind of wasn't ideal
Didn't go to
kind of time for me. Yeah, and that was a time where I wanted to kind of kick on. I'd just been involved with Wales a year earlier. I wanted to kind of, kick on and thought, right, I can have a right good go at this, and it kind of put me back a couple of steps really, and had to start again.
Yeah, and I think sometimes surprisingly footballers get a bad name in terms of like forcing a move and refusing to play and all these different things that kind of come out and are leaked to the press. But what they don't see is things like that, whereby you've been isolated to the youth team, and players never come back from that historically, do they? They always end up eventually moving. There might be a bit of a back and forth, but they eventually move. But you not only forced your way back into the first team training, which is unheard of, you were also got back to a point where you should have been playing.
Yeah.
But it was someone at boardroom level who's kind of holding that back and forced, basically trying to force you out of the club. That's frustrating. There's got to be frustrating for you, and I'm sure it's happened to many footballers. I saw Aaron Ramsdale. I think it's Aaron Ramsdale, the keeper who signed for Arsenal recently.
Yeah.
Talking about his move, and he was basically said the club had said they'd accept a bid if it was the right amount and whatever, and he was like, okay, but I'll keep playing and I'll do my best always, and etc. And then they kept turning down bids even of the amount that they'd kind of agreed, and then it got to a point basically where he was like, right, well, if you're not going to stick to your side of it, I'm not going to play against I think it was West Brom on Tuesday, and he had to force it. But from the outside, then, because the club will leak to say, he's refused to play, and he looks terrible. But actually, he's been put in a position where they're kind of playing a game with him, and he either has to do something or accept that he's not going to get his big move. And I don't know. I wish
that's the thing. I think sometimes the clubs want you to kind of do something like that, so it looks bad on the player rather than the club, and the club feel like they come out and say, "Well, our hands are tied." Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's what a lot of the time, like you see with the Harry Kane situation, he's the one coming out as the bad one who's trying to force a move, but they would have had an agreement to be like, if there's X amount on the table, then you can go. That happens, and they don't let him go. So you know, in the end, he still looks like the bad guy.
Yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. They play games, don't they? At the end of the day, but
Of course.
it is what it is. Look, I know it's like, so you had there's no beating around the bush. You had a tough time with injuries and stuff, sort of from the latter part of your period with Bristol, Oldham, Accrington. Then you started to, you got the opportunity to play again. You played some games, and then Shrewsbury, you made 110 appearances. You've had a good spell there, and then I would say, Wycombe's been, obviously you've been there the longest, but also your performances there, your time there seems to have been really successful. Was it Gareth Ainsworth who signed you for Wycombe? Was he there then, or was it someone else?
Yeah.
So was that part of your decision to go there, sort of him and everything involved, or was it just the right opportunity at the right time?
Not really. I mean, I remember I left Shrewsbury, and I remember I was at Glamorgan Cricket. I was watching a T20 game actually, and I had a phone call through. Yeah, great day, and I had a phone call through off a no number, and at the time it was in the summer, and I started getting a few calls from managers. So I thought I'd take it, and it was the gaffer and the assistant Richard Dobson. They were driving somewhere, I can't remember, and he started talking to me, and I remembered him from Cardiff. I remembered what he was like, and I'll be honest, I've told him this before. I didn't want to go to Wycombe. I just had a good season at Shrewsbury in League One. I got Player of the Season. There was interest at the time from other clubs who were in League One and in Championship, and I was like, well, thanks, but ideally, I don't really want to drop down. And they'd only just survived relegation from League Two to the Conference at the time, so. But I wanted to kind of move down to the London way. My wife now, she was working there, and I've got family and stuff around there, so I wanted to kind of move that way. And yeah, there wasn't actually that many offers. I had a few from other places where I didn't really want to go to, and speaking to the gaffer, he was like, "Look, I know we struggled, but we've got rid of kind of a lot of the people they wanted to get rid of. They signed a few quality players, and they were like, right, we want to have a go at getting up this season." And I'm so happy that I did sign there. We've had an amazing 8 years. We've had 2 promotions. We've had a playoff campaign. We've had cup upsets. We've played, some fantastic teams in the cup. And it's just been amazing. It's made me love football, and not just on the pitch, but love how football can be off the pitch as well. And a lot of players will go through good times in their career, and it'll kind of mar up with the changing room and the team off the pitch. But we got relegated last season. The atmosphere, that at not one point during the season would you think these guys are in a relegation battle or they're bottom of the league or anything like that. The gaffer comes in every Monday morning. We could lose 5-0. He comes in on Monday morning. He's whooping around the gym and the training ground, and he's the first person you can hear. He's smiling. He's never down, and it's just an incredible kind of atmosphere to be in. And we sign players on loan, and they all kind of say like, this place is amazing. It's like there's no one else to get you. Everyone's so nice. People that walk into the, sometimes new players will come into a dressing room, and some players will be like, right, he's after me at my position. Be a bit cold with him, whereas they're always like, why is everyone so nice? Why is everyone so kind of?
So that's wicked, that, isn't it? That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's like your own little bubble away from football.
Yeah, and look, the gaffers, they keep talking about it. He's like, our first and foremost thing when we sign players is what they like as a person. They search through their social media, they search, through other managers who've had them and people they know they associate with, and if they're not right character, then they won't sign them. But they've managed to get so much success from signing the right people and creating a great environment for people to work in. And every other club I've been at, you get in, you have to be in at 10 o'clock in the morning, you get in at 10 to 10, and the boys would turn up and get changed and go out to the pitch. We have to be in at 11 o'clock now with them. The boys are in at 9 o'clock in the morning doing work, doing extras, and not because they're told to, just because they want to, and they love being there and being around the place. And it's amazing what they've built here at Wycombe. And it's credit to the club for not getting rid of him, for staying with him. There's not many managers that can get relegated and not get sacked from their job. No. That's kind of unheard of in football now. So it's it's an amazing place to be at. Look, we don't have all the funds in the world, and you could probably get more money elsewhere, some of these players, but there's a reason why they come to Wycombe. There's a reason why so many players get a move away from Wycombe and come back as well. So, yeah, it's great. And this season being reunited with like Sam Vokes, who I came up in the under-21s with and spoke to him in the summer before he was signed. And I said, look, you're just going to enjoy it. And you speak to Sam now, and he's just really loving just being in football again at a place where
Just playing.
he can enjoy himself and play. Yeah.
Amazing.
So yeah, it's been an amazing 8 years, and hopefully it's not over yet. There's still things I want to achieve here, and yeah, I'm really, I know I'm getting old now in football terms, but I still feel good. I still feel like I'm playing probably some of my best football I've ever played in my career. So I'm happy in that kind of sense.
Right up there in the top 5 of the goal scorers for the season as well. Prolific, like we said. Prolific.
Yeah, I think the last
scoring.
2 or 3 years I've been top 2, I think. So
Yeah. Those free kicks,
luckily I'm on penalties and free kicks and corners and shoot from everywhere. So I'm lucky about that.
So the season is going pretty well. Oh yeah, up there in the assists as well, like, top 3. Oof. Still contributing, mate, at your old age, as you said. You said it, by the way, not me. But still contributing massively, mate, at the end of the day. You're 6th in the league at the moment, well in the playoff battles. Do you think the automatics are well there as well, aren't they? I mean, Wigan are only on 56, you're 53 points, although they've got 3 games in hand, haven't they? But I mean, it is still there, isn't it? Like the automatic places are still up for grabs, and God, it's really close, isn't it? Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, we
want to get promoted. Yeah, we've said that from day one this season. We want to get promoted, and if we can't get in the top 2, we want to get through the playoffs. But we still think that we can get into the top 2. That's still our ambition at the minute. We've had a couple of. We were top of the league 3 weeks ago when we played Oxford, and we've had a run of 2 defeats and a draw since then, which put us down to 6. But we now quickly can turn around in leagues 1 and 2 with the amounts of games, and championship with the amounts of games they have. So we go on a bit of a run now and win the next couple, and then we play Wigan, and things could look so differently by then. So there's still a quarter of the season to go, or a third of the season to go, whatever it is. So we're kind of we had a chat the other day and just said, right, we've got 2 months to kind of give it everything we've got and see where it takes us. And as long as we give it our all, we'll be happy really wherever we end up. So it's an exciting. You'd rather be in the mix now than not in the mix and feel like you've got
100%.
lots of catching up to do. So we've given ourselves a good platform, and hopefully we can have another successful season. And I do want one more promotion on my CV before I do eventually hang up the boots, whenever that may be.
Absolutely, mate. It'd be nice to see you play at the Cardiff City Stadium again once more before you finish, because I think was that special going to play there for the first time. Whenever that was the first time you went to play Cardiff.
Yeah, that was the first time I'd ever played there. I've been there obviously watching games and stuff. It's the first time I'd ever played there. Unfortunately, it was probably the day that our relegation was kind of set in stone, as it were. But it was great. I scored a goal. I was, I wish there was fans there. I wish family and friends were able to come to the game and see that. But hopefully next season, it looks like they're going to stay up, or they should stay up, and hopefully we can get promoted and meet again next season. That'd be awesome.
That'd be nice. Some players in your squad, isn't there? In your Wycombe team, just some real players in there. Just having a quick look then at the squad, some real good players in there. So I hopefully you'll get promotion in some fashion. Would you rather go up in the playoffs generally? Now I don't mean necessarily this season, because I don't want to put you in a spot or get you in trouble, but like as a general thing, like would you rather go up as second, so you get automatic, but you're not the champions of the league, or playoff final, win at Wembley and go up?
It's tough. I've been fortunate to do both, but I think now if I had another choice, I think I'd go up automatically, save those few weeks of stress, get a few more weeks of the summer to ourselves. I've done it before where we've got promoted on a day and had kind of a celebratory day, and it's been as good as a kind of playoff final. Playoff finals are amazing, and don't get me wrong, it's incredible to kind of get a trophy at Wembley as well. But I think, yeah, I've never won a league. I've always wanted to win a league, and I know it's going to be tough, but that's kind of my ideal situation. But it's great. It's a great day out Wembley. It's great for the family. It's great to see you played at Wembley and to do all that. But I think this season, if you could guarantee me one, I'd guarantee second place automatics and be done with the season. Stay away from the stress of the playoffs.
Interesting, that is. I found that really interesting. You've mentioned obviously your wife a couple of times. Like, talk to me a little bit about her, because obviously I think the stereotypical kind of image of like a footballer's wife is obviously the things you see in tabloid media and, you know, TV and stuff like that. But like, I imagine that sometimes it's quite a lonely thing, because you are traveling or playing or training a lot throughout your career.
Yeah.
I'm assuming like she's been a tremendous support and stuff like that to you. Like, how big an impact has she had on your thing?
I mean, she'd kill you if she heard you call her a footballer's wife or anything like that.
Well, you know what I mean.
She hates it. But no, I completely agree. And look, we've been together for 12, 13 years since I left Bristol Rovers. It just so happened that when I signed for Oldham, she went to Manchester Uni. And then when I was at Shrewsbury, it wasn't too far distance to Manchester.
Cool.
Then when she got a job in London, or just outside London, so that's why I wanted to kind of move down. And she works. She's got her own career. She's doing really well for herself in the fashion industry. She works for a huge brand and is doing really well and you know, works tremendously hard. She works a lot longer hours than I do, or I ever hopefully will do. But yeah, I mean, like tonight, I'm in the hotel in Lincoln. She'll be at home alone. She's just had a week's worth of work, and it would have been nice for her to have me there and, you know, be at home, cook dinner and chill out. But fortunately, I've got to kind of travel and it's hard. Football, you know, it's really antisocial, you know, playing football. You miss out on Christmases, on birthdays, on family holidays and gatherings and things like that.
Weddings and, you know, all sorts.
Yeah. I've got a family wedding coming up in August or July or August time, which I probably won't be able to go to, and it's tough, but that's, you know, the sacrifice you make to kind of and we've always said, like, we can't wait to be able to one day go away for Christmas and New Year and do all that together, and just be able to go, right, you know, work's getting on top of me. I want to take a week off. I don't want to wait till June when the season finishes and the playoffs finish to be able to go away for a couple of weeks. So it's it'd be nice when that kind of finally happens and I've got a real job, as it were. But yeah, she's been great, and she's kind of never one to kind of you know, get too hyped up about football. She's the one who's on at me about, you know, make sure stuff's there for after football, make sure you're ready, make sure you're kind of sensible and things like that. So she's probably got her head screwed on a bit more than I have, actually, with all that stuff. But no, she's great, and again, she's from Cardiff. She's, you know, fellow Welsh girl, and we've got our own little life set up in Watford now, and you know, that's probably where we'll look to settle, I think.
Amazing. And I think I was setting you up nicely, mate, because obviously it's Valentine's Day in a couple of days. I was setting you up nicely to say all these nice things about your wife. So you can thank me for that.
Cheers. I'll just replay this.
Yeah, that's it. We'll clip it, and then there you go. So to finish off, mate, what I like to do is I like to ask two questions, really. The first one I want to ask you is, what is the wildest thing you've ever seen on a football pitch, like in your life, whether it was watching or playing or anything like spring to mind? Just strangest, weirdest, just whatever it may be, craziest.
Oh, you put me on the spot there.
I know, it's a difficult one, isn't it?
It's the craziest thing I've ever. I'm trying to think if I've ever had like pitch invasions or anything like that.
The streakers are popular, and although you don't seem to get as many of them. Is that right?
I've never
Used to
had.
get
We did a
a
few weeks
lot.
ago at Oxford. We had a guy run on the pitch and try and go for one of their players, which was
Did you see
a
the
really
Leicester
crazy
player
experience. The Leicester
the other
one
day?
and the Rotherham
Unbelievable.
game, Rotherham Accrington, when the guy was about to take a penalty.
Crazy, mate.
Seems to be happening a little bit more. So I'd say
Got to
that,
get on top of that.
yeah, I'd say Sam a man walking around a pitch with a
That
sheep
was
or ram,
mental.
whatever he used to do. Yeah, that was a bit strange. And if imagine that happened now, everyone would that'd be all over the
Yeah,
place, wouldn't it?
yeah. Sam
Probably
Man
something
would have
like
been cancelled long ago. I think some of the
that.
stuff he used to come out with.
Yeah, yeah,
Never get away with that these days. But like,
yeah,
yeah, just quickly on the the fans on the pitch and stuff. I said yesterday with on the show with Rodri, like, football clubs do need to get on top of it, because like the guy who hit the Leicester player, he didn't just come on the pitch and sort of say something. He punched him in the face twice. Like, what if he'd had a
yeah,
knife or something like that?
yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean?
I
You could be
said this.
talking about a
Yeah, yeah.
whole different thing.
Mm,
So football clubs, stewards, police, security, whoever, they have to be more aware of people doing it, because with video, like social media, the way it is, and camera phones and things, people are doing stuff for content. And I know it
yeah,
sounds stupid and it sounds a bit hypocritical, because I'm someone who is basically wants to make content. I want to do
yeah,
it in the right way. And like, but there's people who just want to be famous for anything,
yeah.
and they're
That's
willing to
what we
do
said. We said
dangerous,
they
stupid
want to
stuff.
just they want people to look at them and be like, I was that guy who ran on the pitch
Yeah.
and did this and did that, and it's pathetic. Yeah,
Dangerous, mate. It's stupid
yeah,
and it's dangerous. And I really hope that kind of clubs get on top of it quickly.
yeah.
Final question, and this is a cracker. I love it, because everyone gives a different answer and they interpret it differently. So I'm interested in what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Joe Jacobson, what is the meaning of life?
Oh, I think just to have a purpose is big. I think to go and I'm so fortunate I go out and do a job which I love doing. It's something I would be doing for free if you know I could work and still play football. So I'm so fortunate that I'm able to do that, to be able to every day work and be happy. And yes, it's not easy, but I think um, you know, I just to enjoy it. There's so many people out there who have to go to work to survive basically and don't enjoy it. Whereas I'm in such a fortunate position where look, I still have to work to survive, but I'm able to do it and spend time with my friends and yeah, just keep healthy, keep fit, and literally I go in every day and I have the best day ever. Every day is such good fun and I love it. So I'm very, very happy and fortunate to be in that position.
No, but good answer. The thing I love about that question is that everyone kind of interprets it differently, or have got a different
Yeah,
answer. So like, some people will interpret it as like a more spiritual thing, like what's the meaning of life, and then other people
yeah,
will kind of just look at it as like, oh, what's the meaning of life for me, or
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
whatever. I like it. It's a nice way to finish off. Do you know? I tried to find, like, there's no photos of you or videos of you in Cardiff top. I tried to find a photo of you doing like in a Cardiff top to put up on the screen, and then when you said about there was video of you doing the Ayatollah, I tried to find
Yeah.
that and I can't find it anywhere. So it's quite frustrating.
The ones that used to be on is on YouTube, but there was always stuff like from interviews and stuff I did when I was there. So maybe have a look on
Yeah, I'll have a little
type
dig
them into
around, see if I
YouTube or
can
something. Yeah,
put
yeah.
any in. But listen, Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I really, really enjoyed listening to your story. Really
No,
enjoyed
thanks for
just
having
having
me
a
on.
chat.
Sorry, I kept choking. I'd really
It's all right,
dry
mate.
throat the whole through that.
I had to keep muting myself because I was coughing away. Like, I just can't stop. So it seems like the more I talk, the more I cough. So it's
Yeah, yeah.
difficult.
I know
But
what you mean.
I really appreciate it, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure we won't be the last time we see you on the channel. I hope so. You're
Yeah,
always
stay in
welcome.
touch for sure. Yeah.
But guys and girls, check out Joe on social media and stuff like that, and also make sure to keep an eye on Wycombe Wanderers. Hopefully they're going to go up this year. I'm hoping so. And
Me too.
Yes, indeed, mate, indeed. But until then, check out Ace Podcast Nation on all the social media platforms. Give Joe a follow on social media as well. And we'll be back next week with another episode. But also, Rodri Gig Show Thursday live, Danny Batten Fight Show Sunday live, and patreon.com/Ace Podcast Nation for additional shows, including our adult comedy podcast, The Boot and the Limp, every week. So yeah, loads of good stuff. Check out. Cheers.